Lisa Banks was 23, fresh out of college, and determined to chase adventure beyond her comfort zone. While her friends back home in Chicago were settling into predictable office jobs, Lisa packed her bags and flew to Seoul, South Korea. Her plan was simple: work hard, save money, and experience a new culture. But reality hit harder than expected. The job market was brutal. Every interview ended the same way: smiles, polite words, and rejection, until one email changed everything. Lisa, reading the screen, hopeful: "Congratulations. You've been accepted for an internship at Hancorp, the most powerful conglomerate in South Korea. The company people only dreamed of working at." Lisa jumped around her tiny apartment, not caring if the neighbors thought she was crazy. Her first day arrived sooner than she expected. Nervous but determined, she put on her best blazer, grabbed a cup of coffee to stay awake, and rushed into the towering glass building that seemed to scrape the sky. And that's when it happened. She collided with someone in the lobby, sending hot coffee splattering across his expensive suit. Gasps echoed around her as employees froze, horrified. Lisa's eyes widened. "Oh my God, I am so sorry. Please tell me this wasn't silk. Or cashmere. Or, I don't know, something I can't afford." The man looked down at her, his sharp jawline tightening. His eyes cold as winter ice. He didn't say a word at first. He just studied her like she was some kind of puzzle. This was Chon Min, the CEO of Hancorp. Billionaire. Genius. Ruthless. And utterly untouchable, but Lisa didn't know that. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, deep, and chilling. "You must be new here." Lisa, fumbling, yeah. "First day. Great impression, huh?" The corner of his lip twitched almost a smirk, but not quite. He brushed past her without another word, leaving her embarrassed but strangely curious about the mysterious man she had just ruined a suit for. Interesting. Lisa Banks had known that spilling coffee on a billionaire's $1,000 suit would change the course of her life. She would have turned around that morning, gone back to her tiny apartment, and crawled under the covers. But Lisa was not the type to hide from life. She was the type to run headfirst into it. Which explained how she ended up in the lobby of Hancorp. Clutching a cup of coffee, her stomach tight with nerves, and her future about to collide with destiny. Literally, the moment she stepped through the glass doors of the skyscraper, she bumped into someone hard. Coffee flew, splattering across a man's tailored suit. Gasps echoed from nearby employees. Phones nearly slipped from trembling hands. Lisa's eyes widened. "Oh my God, no, I'm so sorry. Please tell me this isn't silk. Or cashmere. Or something so expensive I'll be paying it off until I'm 90. The man didn't answer right away. He stood tall, broad-shouldered, his suit ruined but his expression unreadable. His jaw was sharp, his lips pressed into a firm line, his eyes cold. When he finally spoke, his voice was smooth, deep, but with an edge that cut through the silence. "You must be new here." Lisa blinked, nerves prickling her skin. Yeah. First day. Great impression, huh?" The corner of his mouth twitched, but not quite into a smile. Without another word, he brushed past her, leaving her clutching her empty coffee cup and her pride. Lisa exhaled. Okay, first disaster of the day done. What she didn't know was that she had just baptized Chon Min, the CEO of Hancorp, in hot coffee. By the afternoon, with Lisa trying to convince herself that the dance meant nothing. Sure, Chon Min's hand had rested at the small of her back with just the right amount of pressure. Sure, his eyes had softened ever so slightly when he told her to follow his lead. And sure, for the briefest moment, she had forgotten to breathe when his chest brushed against hers as they turned across the floor, but it meant nothing. Absolutely nothing. At least, that's what she told herself as she peeled off her heels in her tiny apartment, tossing them across the room like the enemies they were. "He's your boss," she muttered, flopping onto her bed. "He's rich, cold, intimidating and dangerously good-looking." She groaned into her pillow. "Lisa, you're doomed." The next morning, doom greeted her in the form of 3 folders stacked neatly on her desk. Each one contained enough paperwork to kill a small forest. A yellow sticky note sat on top, written in neat, sharp handwriting, due by noon. CM, Lisa narrowed her eyes. CM stands for Cold Monster, apparently. Still, she rolled up her sleeves, brewed the strongest coffee she could manage, and dove into the work. Hours later, when the clock struck 12, she marched into his office and dropped the folders onto his desk. All done, she said, crossing her arms. Chon-min looked up slowly, his eyes narrowing. Already? Yes. You asked for miracles, I delivered. She leaned closer and whispered conspiratorially, but next time, try not to kill so many trees. Save the planet. For a moment, his expression didn't change. Then, to Lisa's shock, a soft sound escaped him. Almost like a laugh, almost. You are unusual, he said finally. I'll take that as a compliment, Lisa replied, but not everyone found her unusualness charming. By the end of her first week, the office buzzed with gossip. Whispers followed her down hallways. Stares burned holes in her back whenever she entered a room. She must be sleeping with him. In years, Chon-min Han, the man who prided himself on control, was losing it, and it was all because of her. The next morning, Lisa walked into the office to find a mountain of files stacked on her desk. Reports. Contracts. Proposals. Enough paperwork to make her eyes water. On top of the stack sat a neat little note, in Chon-min's precise handwriting, organize. Summarize. On my desk by 5 p.m., Lisa stared at the pile, jaw dropping. Is he serious? This is enough reading material for a small army. The intern at the desk beside hers leaned over, whispering nervously. That's 3 weeks of work. Lisa let out a low whistle. Oh, he's definitely testing me. And he was. Chon-min had decided it was time to reassert control. The woman who called him Mr. Iceberg needed to be reminded who was in charge, but Lisa Banks wasn't about to give him the satisfaction of breaking her. She brewed the strongest coffee she could manage, tied her braids into a bun, and powered through. Every so often, she added sarcastic sticky notes. This section is so boring I nearly cried. You're welcome for the summary. Whoever wrote this should be banned from using words. If you make me read another 50-page contract, I'm charging hazard pay. By 4:55 p.m., with tired eyes and cramped fingers, she marched into his office and dropped the neat, color-coded stack on his desk. All done, she said, smiling sweetly. Chon-min glanced at the files, then at her. Impossible. Possible, Lisa shot back. And efficient. You're welcome. He picked up one of the summaries, scanning her handwriting. At first, his lips pressed together in irritation, but then he caught sight of one of her sarcastic notes, and his shoulders shook. Just slightly. Almost like he was holding back laughter, Lisa narrowed her eyes. Don't you dare laugh. His gaze flicked up, and there it was again, that twitch of a smile he never quite let loose. You're insubordinate. I'm efficient, she corrected. And honest. Which is probably why you keep me around. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Finally, Chon-min leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing slightly. You're reckless. Lisa tilted her head. And you're controlling. Someone has to be. And someone has to tell you when you're being ridiculous. For a moment, neither moved. His eyes locked on hers, sharp and dark, her chin tilted up in defiance. It was fire meeting ice, and instead of canceling each other out, the air between them crackled, hot enough to burn. Lisa's heart hammered in her chest, but she refused to look away. She wouldn't give him that victory. Finally, Chon-min broke the silence. His voice was low, quieter than usual. You're not like anyone I've met before. Lisa blinked, caught off guard. Is that good or bad? He didn't answer. He simply turned his gaze back to the files, effectively dismissing her, but Lisa walked out of his office with a strange flutter in her chest, the echo of his words looping in her mind. Not like anyone I've met before. That night, she lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. she hated to admit it, but she was starting to enjoy their battles. The way he challenged her. The way he never let her get away with anything and yet, never truly pushed her away, it was dangerous. Stupid, even. He was her boss. The billionaire CEO of Hancorp. A man who could ruin her career with a single word, and yet, every time their eyes met, she felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Lisa Banks was walking on thin ice, and deep down, she knew it was only a matter of time before it cracked. By the time the annual Hancorp gala rolled around, Lisa was praying she could stay in the shadows. It wasn't just another company event. It was the event plastered all over the business magazines, where executives rubbed shoulders with politicians, celebrities, and international investors. Everyone who was anyone would be there. And somehow, Lisa found herself on the guest list. She hadn't been invited personally, of course. Assistants weren't usually seen at these kinds of things. But Chan Min had made it very clear, "You'll be there," he'd said without looking up from his papers. Lisa had blinked. Me? At the rich people party? He raised an eyebrow. It's not a party. It's a strategic networking event. Right. So why me? His eyes lifted, pinning her in place. Because I said so. And that had been the end of the discussion. On the night of the gala, Lisa stood at the edge of the ballroom, clutching a glass of champagne she had no intention of drinking. She had chosen her nicest dress, a simple black gown she'd found on sale, but compared to the glittering designer gowns around her, she might as well have shown up in jeans. Whispers followed her as she moved. She could feel the weight of the stairs, hear the judgment in the voices. Who is she? His assistant. She doesn't belong here. Lisa forced a smile and told herself she didn't care. But deep down, the words stung. Then a familiar voice broke through the noise. She turned to see Chan Min approaching, immaculate in his tailored tuxedo. The crowd seemed to part for him, as though even gravity bowed to his presence. Lisa tried to keep her tone light. Enjoying the strategic networking event? His gaze flicked over her, and for the briefest moment, something warm passed through his eyes. But when he spoke, his voice was cool as ever. Why are you standing here like a guest? You're supposed to be working. Lisa scowled. Working? You dragged me here without telling me what I'm supposed to do. Before he could answer, a group of executives approached, greeting him with overly polite bows and smiles. They glanced at Lisa, their curiosity obvious, but no one dared ask who she was. The conversation turned to investments, mergers, and partnerships, topics Lisa had no interest in. She was about to excuse herself when Chan Min's hand suddenly pressed against the small of her back. She froze. "This is my assistant," he said smoothly, his hand steady, his eyes daring anyone to question it. Lisa blinked, heat rushing to her cheeks. Assistant. Right. Just his assistant. The executives murmured polite acknowledgments, though some exchanged looks Lisa didn't miss. When they finally walked away, Lisa hissed under her breath, "You could have warned me before introducing me like that." "Why?" he asked calmly. "You handled it. That's not the point." But before she could argue further, the music shifted, signaling the start of the first dance. All eyes turned to the floor, where couples began moving gracefully to the music. Lisa planned to slip away unnoticed. But she barely took one step before his voice stopped her. "Dance with me." She spun back around. "What?" His hand was outstretched, his expression unreadable. Lisa glanced around. "In front of all these people?" "Yes." Her heart raced. Every instinct told her to refuse, but his gaze was steady, commanding, impossible to resist. Reluctantly, she set her hand in his. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the CEO of Hancorp led his assistant, his ordinary, out-of-place assistant, onto the dance floor. Lisa stumbled at first. "I don't know how to waltz." "Follow my lead," he murmured, his hand firm on her waist. And she did. Step by step, turn by turn, she let him guide her. The music swelled, the crowd watched, but all Lisa could focus on was him. The warmth of his hand. The steadiness of his gaze. The way his mask seemed to slip, just slightly, when he looked at her, for the first time, she saw not the CEO, not the Ice King, but the man underneath, and it terrified her, because as they moved across the floor, Lisa realized something she didn't want to admit: she was falling. The dance ended too soon, leaving Lisa breathless. As the applause rippled through the room, Chan Min leaned closer. His lips near her ear. "You handled yourself well," he said quietly. Lisa forced a shaky laugh. "Well enough to survive another day in your icy kingdom?" His lips curved ever so slightly. "We'll see." And just like that, he released her, leaving her standing alone in the middle of the ballroom, her heart pounding like a drum. The gala haunted Lisa for days, not because of the whispers, or the way she stood out like a misplaced puzzle piece in a sea of diamonds and silk, but because of the dance. Every time she closed her eyes, she could still feel the warmth of Chan Min's hand against her back, the quiet steadiness of his voice telling her to follow his lead, the way his dark eyes softened just enough to make her wonder if she had imagined it. But he didn't mention it again. Not once. By Monday morning, it was as if the dance had never happened. He was back to his cold, composed self, and Lisa told herself it was for the best. After all, he was her boss. A billionaire. A man living in a world she had no place in, and yet she couldn't stop thinking about him. Late one night, Lisa found herself alone in the office. Most of the staff had gone home hours ago, but she had stayed behind to finish a presentation for the marketing team. Yawning, she rubbed her eyes and decided to call it a night. As she passed by the CEO's office, she noticed a light still on. Curiosity tugged at her. She hesitated, then pushed the door open slightly. Chan Min was at his desk, but he wasn't working. His jacket was off, his tie loosened, and in his hands was a framed photograph. Lisa stepped inside quietly, catching a glimpse of the picture. A woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile was Chan Min's mother, she guessed. He didn't notice her at first. His usually stoic expression was softened, his eyes distant, almost sad. For a moment, Lisa simply watched, surprised at the vulnerability etched across his face. He wasn't the Ice King here. He was just a man, alone with his memories.
When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. "You know, most people would have gone home by now." He looked up sharply, the mask snapping back into place in an instant. "What are you still doing here?" "Finishing some work," she said with a small shrug. "But I could ask you the same thing. Don't you ever take a break?" He returned the photo to his desk carefully, almost reverently, before replying. "Breaks are for people who can afford them." Lisa leaned against the doorframe, folding her arms. "Funny. I thought billionaires could afford just about anything." His lips curved faintly, not quite a smile, but close. "Not everything." The silence that followed was heavy but not uncomfortable. For the first time, Lisa felt like she wasn't standing in front of her boss, but beside a man carrying more than he ever let on. She took a cautious step closer. "Was that your mom?" He hesitated, then nodded once. "She passed away when I was young. My father wasn't the kindest man. She was the only warmth I had." Lisa's chest ached at the quiet pain in his voice. She had never imagined the cold, untouchable CEO had scars like hers. "I'm sorry," she said softly. He looked at her, his dark eyes searching hers, as though trying to decide if her words were genuine, and in that moment, Lisa realized something dangerous. She wasn't just curious about him anymore. She cared. "I should let you work," she said finally, breaking the tension before it swallowed her whole. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "Lisa." It was the first time he had ever said her name. She turned, her heart skipping. "Yes?" His gaze lingered on her, softer now, the ice melting at the edges. "You're very direct." A smile tugged at her lips. "And you're very icy. Guess we balance each other out." For a second, just a second, his lips curved into something real. A smile, and Lisa walked out of his office with her heart racing, knowing she had just seen a side of Chan Min no one else had. The cracks in the iceberg were beginning to show, and deep down, Lisa knew if she wasn't careful, she'd be the one to fall through. By Wednesday morning, the office was buzzing like a hive. Lisa could feel the stares the second she walked in. Conversations dropped to whispers when she passed. Some people didn't bother lowering their voices at all. That's her assistant. Did you see them at the gala? Dancing. In front of everyone. She's not even, shoo, she'll hear you. Lisa gritted her teeth and kept walking, her heels clicking against the polished floor. She refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing her flinch. Still, she couldn't shake the heat rising in her cheeks. One dance. That's all it had been. A dance. But in the corporate world, where appearances were currency, one dance between a billionaire CEO and his assistant was enough to ignite wildfire rumors. By lunch, the whispers had reached the executive wing. Lisa sat at her desk, trying to focus, when Jin-soo, the overly ambitious junior manager who always strutted around like he owned the place, sauntered up with a smirk. "So, Miss Banks," he drawled, loud enough for others to hear. "What's it like, being the CEO's favorite?" Lisa's jaw tightened. "It's like listening to people ask dumb questions. Exhausting." A few chuckles rippled through the nearby desks, but Jin-soo's smirk didn't falter. If anything, it widened. "Careful. People might think you're here for more than just typing memos." Lisa stood, eyes flashing. "And people might think you're jealous. Which, let's be honest, you are." The laughter this time was louder, and Jin-soo's ears turned red. He muttered something under his breath and stormed off, but Lisa's victory was short-lived, because the moment she sat back down, she heard a voice behind her. "Cold. Controlled, Miss Banks. In my office." Her heart skipped. She turned to see Cheon-min standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. The whispers erupted instantly. Pressed down like a weight, Lisa crossed her arms. "If this is about Jin-soo, I already handled it." Cheon-min closed the door slowly. "It's not about Jin-soo." She raised a brow. "Then what is it about?" He stepped closer, his gaze sharp. "The rumors." Lisa's stomach nodded. "Oh, those. You mean the whispers about how your assistant is secretly seducing the Ice King?" "Lisa." His voice was low, a warning, she sighed. "Look, I didn't start them. And honestly, I don't care what they say." "I care." Something in his tone made her still. His jaw was tight, his hands clasped behind his back like he was holding himself together. "This company thrives on perception." He continued. "One misstep, one scandal, and everything I've built." Everything. He stopped, his voice catching for just a second before he regained control. "I won't let anyone undermine it." Lisa studied him, the perfectionist CEO who carried the weight of an empire on his shoulders. For once, she didn't see arrogance. She saw fear. "You think a few rumors will ruin you?" She asked softly. He met her gaze, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of uncertainty. "No," he said finally. "But I think they'll ruin you." The words hit her harder than she expected. Before she could respond, there was a knock at the door. One of the senior executives peeked in, nervous. "Sir, the board is waiting." Cheon-min straightened immediately, his mask snapping back into place. "I'll be there." The executive disappeared, and for a moment, the silence returned. Then, without warning, Cheon-min reached into his desk drawer, pulled out a sleek company ID badge, and handed it to her. Lisa blinked. "What's this?" "Your promotion," he said. "You're no longer just my assistant. Effective immediately, you're the director of special projects." Her mouth dropped. "What?" "I don't even know what that means." "It means," he said evenly, "that the next time anyone whispers about you, they'll be talking about an executive." Lisa stared at him, stunned. "You can't just." "I can," he interrupted. "And I did." With that, he brushed past her, leaving her speechless in his office, clutching the badge that would change everything. Lisa sank into the chair, her heart pounding. What had he just done? Promoted her. protected her, put her on a pedestal she had no business standing on, and the worst part, she didn't know whether to thank him or run.
Episode 1 ends here. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Also click on the notification bell, so that you will get notified whenever a new story comes up. You can also go ahead to tell me the country you are watching from, so that I can make a story for you.